Hello, welcome to True Hoop with me, Jarod Hector, and special guest, the senior writer at NBA.com, Michael C. Wright. How are you, sir?
I'm good, my man. How are you?
I'm good. Can't complain. Now, folks, Michael, for those of you who are NBA fans, you know he's a longtime NBA reporter, writer, was at ESPN prior to being with NBA.com. So, another NBA season finishes. This is old hat for you. But what sort of top line takeaways do you have from this recently concluded NBA season?
Ooh, that's a tough one, but yeah, no, it is because there's so much going
There is.
on, and there were teams that underachieved, and it was because of injuries, and just a lot. There were a ton of storylines, but I think my biggest takeaway, just from watching the Celtics play, and I'm sure we'll get to them at some point, but they are sort of the blueprint for what everybody's been trying to do for a while now in this league, but they finally nailed it. And what I'm saying here is that they are putting five highly skilled guys on the floor that you can't like not guard. Like they're all threats. They all can shoot it. And I think everybody's been trying to do that. Like the whole thing was small ball. But no, it's not necessarily small ball. Like it's a bunch of versatile guys that can run, can defend, and can shoot it. And like that's what they have.
Yep.
You got Jason Tatum, dude's about to get his supermax deal, but he's him and Jaylen Brown can defend on the wings at a high level. You got Kristaps Porzingis, who he's a mobile guy that can protect the rim. You got two of the best two-way guards, in Drew Holiday and Derek White. And so I think that, like I said, it's sort of like this blueprint that teams are starting to try to go to now. You saw it with the Dallas Mavericks too, in that they kind of figured out, okay, after the trade deadline, they bring in Derek Lively, Gafford. I mean, not Derek Lively, but they bring in Gafford
and PJ Washington.
And PJ. And then they figure out, though, that this is who we are. This is how we play well. Okay, we got shooters all around. Luka Doncic. Okay, have him drive to the hole, make that big, decide whether he's going to come up on him. He comes up on him, throws a lob, or he's going to take the layup, or he's going to kick it out to one of the shooters. And so all these teams are sort of figuring out the optimum way to play the game. And I think that's really cool because there's going to be an arms race, I think, in the next couple of years for all these teams to sort of build in that manner.
Yep. I love that you said that, Michael. Coach David Thorpe, who's my partner on this podcast, always says 5 weaponized players on the floor, right? So everybody who can, when they get the ball, can make a decision, can shoot, can drive, right? And get right. So those 3 things are so critical, right? It's a triple threat, right? It's so critical because now if you have 5 guys who are weaponized, well, then who are you slumping off? Right? Nobody, because you can't leave anybody alone. And with all that space, that makes guys like Tatum and Brown now great. Now you got to guard them one-on-one, which we know is impossible. And that collapses and forces defense to rotate. I love it. We're going to get in the Celtics in a minute. I want to talk about them broadly because you mentioned that they're the blueprint. Michael, you've been covering the league a long time. I've been watching the NBA since the 85 finals. They are your sort of throwback team in that it was hard lumps getting here. They went through all the playoff heartache and all the stuff that we used to see happen, particularly in the 80s and 90s, right? The Pistons just didn't win a title one year. They got their ass kicked by the Celtics, right? And they finally broke through. And when they got to the finals, they didn't even win the first time they got there. Got beat again, right? Had to come back to the drawing board. I think fans sometimes get lost in this. Let me just grab some people together or whatever, and we're going to win a championship right away. And I'm like, guys, that's not how this league has historically been.
That's facts. You can't win that way. I mean, you have to build to what your strengths are. And that's what all these teams are doing. You know what? I'm really intrigued by the Alex Caruso trade in Oklahoma City because they were one guy short of being, what they want to be as far as, just like you said, 5 weaponized guys on the floor. Josh Giddey, you didn't have that, like they were slumping off him. Like you could put him in the dunker spot and everybody's like,
right. Exactly.
We cool. We ain't got to guard him. And so they're going to be really good. Like that's a team that kind of has flown under the radar. I know they were the number 1 seed and everything, but people aren't giving them a lot of love. But just watch them. They're going to be really good.
Well, I think they are going to really, what's happening with them is what I just talked about the Celtics, right? This was they were the number 1 seed, but it was their first time collectively. You don't go from not being in the playoffs to all of a sudden winning a championship. That's not how this works. Like you have to understand the collective heartbreak of losing, and also the realization that you ain't playing the Pistons tonight. This ain't the Wizards on a Tuesday. There's no bad teams in the postseason. Everybody
Right.
knows your stuff. Oh man, they got my counters. What's my counter to my counter? I don't have one yet. Well, that's what you got to work on in the summer, right? Like, again, Coach Thorpe always says, like, let what happens in games dictate what you do and work on in practice, right? So
Yes.
for Oklahoma City, what was failing us as individual players in those moments? Okay, that's what I got to go work on now in the summer. So I have counters to when teams take this away and this away from me. Yeah, I love that for them because Caruso is, again, he's your classic positive player. He helps you win possessions. Can defend, can shoot the three. If you run out to close that to him, he can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. I mean, again, this is what everybody should be doing. And, you know, we say the NBA is a copycat league, but we also know there aren't a lot of teams aren't that smart, man. They're going to go. We joked about this. Everybody talked about who got Bradley Beal and who got Damian Lillard in the summer. Them dudes been home since April. Like, didn't matter who got those dudes. Who got Drew Holiday? That's what mattered, right? Like, and I think for fans, it's tough to see sometimes. Yes, we know scoring matters, but that's one facet of the game, right? There are all these other areas, particularly in the playoffs, when possessions are so critical, right? When you can't waste them. And that's what the Celtics had in spades in this NBA Finals.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, I thought that throughout the regular season, this is what's so cold about the Celtics. Throughout the regular season, they were like working on stuff like, okay, well, we might see this in the playoffs. So they could use regular season games to work on what they perceived as their own flaws. And then when they get to the playoffs, now they're rolling. So I thought that was really cool. But that's what happens when you put together a historically dominant regular season. Now you can chill. You can work on, you know, hey, you know what? Let's get Kristaps Porzingis more in rotations and stuff. Let's see how he looks. Okay, so we can decide whether we should do that in the playoffs. That's what they were able to do. And to me, you know, I know a lot of times we sort of devalue the regular season, but the Boston Celtics were the case study that showed us that, hey, you really can get better if you handle your business. You win the games you're supposed to win. And now you build enough of a cushion. And now you can say, okay, let's use this game to work on this or that. So, like I said, blueprint.
Yeah, and it was a luxury, right? Because, again, they have Tatum and Brown have got the experience, right? Because everything, look, as much as I'm talking about White and Holiday and Kristaps, and they all matter, they don't matter as much if Brown and Tatum are not all NBA level players, right? Like, we know that.
Right.
You have to have the nucleus of those type of people who can amplify everyone around them, right? Like, rising tide lifts all ships. That's what those two do. So now it allows Drew and Derek and Kristaps to be the best versions of themselves. So if you don't have players already that can do that, well, it doesn't matter how many Drew Holidays you get because, yes, you'll have a winning culture, but you won't have enough to get you over that top, right? And again, I think that's what teams, they think about, oh, let me just get a bunch of names and guys. And I'm like, but you got names and guys already. Think about the Phoenix Suns. You mentioned that there was a disappointing season, right? Okay, so they went and get Bradley Beal. How much better would they have been instead of Bradley Beal? They had Drew Holiday and two other players because the salaries work out where that Beal is making $26 million or so more than Drew Holiday is. Right? You would have been so much better as a team.
Yeah, I mean, but what happens is these owners or governors, GMs, they start getting stars in their eyes and they say, hey, this guy is a big name. We bring him in, all of our problems are solved. And it never works out that way. It never works out that way. I mean, you got essentially 3 stars on that team, 2 superstars and a star in Brad Beal. And that's just not going to work out because now you have sort of hamstrung your team to the point to where now you have no depth. You don't have those supporting type players. And that's sort of what we saw in the playoffs. Like, I mean, you look at Dallas, same thing. They didn't go get, they have Kyrie and Luka. They didn't go get a bunch of stars to put around them. They got guys that are comfortable and stars in their roles to okay, you want to load up on Luka? I'm gonna sit here in this corner and bust you know what every time Luka throw it to me. They had those guys, and so Derek Lively, rookie, 19 years old. He didn't even look like a rookie until they came up against the Celtics. To be honest, the whole season, playoffs, he finally looked like a rookie when they played the Celtics. It's understandable. But, he's a guy that's running from corner to corner, defending the three, but also, protecting the rim. Like, they had guys that fit right where they need to be in their roles. And like when you look at a team like Dallas, you're like, okay, they figured out what they want to be, but they really didn't even come together until the trade deadline. So now they've got a whole off season to work on it. They're going to come in, flying when the season starts. So I think that, like, okay, let's figure out what we are. Let's lean into it, and let's bring in the type of people that can play that way. This is Dallas's, their own particular style. Minnesota, you look at them, very similar. I mean, like you got the rim protection with Rudy Gobert. You got a star and Ant-Man, and you have all these pieces around them that just fit in their roles. Like Mike Conley, I can't think of a better point guard for that team than him. And so that's what I'm starting to see around the league, that teams are starting to really figure out, okay, this is what we are. But it's all sort of a similar blueprint, but I think that Boston is just the team that has really kind of established it. And like, that didn't happen overnight for them. They did that over a course of years. They drafted guys, traded for guys, brought guys in. So it's not something. Denver, same thing. Like, we're finding there's a commonality between all these teams, and it's that this is what we are. Let's lean into it. Let's get the pieces we need to sort of play that way.
And I think ultimately, right, teams need to sort of be aware of what their own shortcomings are, right?
Yeah.
And be honest about them and not jump on the whole like, oh, we're going to be fine, whatever. Let's just run it back. It's like, are you sure, right? Are your guys developing the way they need to develop? Do you even know how to develop your guys? Do you even know what you have, right? I think I looked at Indiana this year, right? And Halliburton goes down in that conference finals. But Andrew Nembhard, fantastic. And he was fantastic since he was a rookie, right?
Yep.
Already an elite defender, plus on that end of the floor, right? Can knock down threes. I'm like, these are again, you got to fill your roster with as many talented players as possible, players that can help you win possessions. And then it is your job as a staff to coach them all up. So everybody's ready when their number is called, right? Like, that's ultimately what you want in an ideal situation here. We talked about the Timberwolves, man, and that trade, right? Everybody kind of scoffed at that trade when it happened, the Rudy Gobert deal.
They still do, sort of. They still do.
But without Gobert and the impact on that defense, right? There's no way this team is what they are now. As good as Ant-Man is, the defense is what allowed them, right, because their offense, as we saw in the postseason, it was so Ant-Man and ISO heavy, they had nothing else going on, right?
Right.
Defense is what allowed them to have that top 3 record, be so elite in net rating, right? Help them beat Denver, right? Because they had 2 bigs that you could throw at Jokic and clog up the paint, grab a bunch of boards, limit second chance opportunities. But they're another team, right, that can look at, okay, what did Boston have? 5 weaponized guys. As much as we love Rudy, he's not fully weaponized on offense, right?
Not on offense, yeah.
We like Cat. And Cat, so is it Cat that you keep when you move Rudy, right? But how does that affect your defense now, right? And so these are kind of the challenges that you have to work through. I love Conley too. Conley's a year older now, right? So do we have to figure out who's the guy we get? I mean, Caruso would have been great for them, right? But probably couldn't have gotten him. But these are the things that you have to start thinking about as a team, and it's so difficult when you're trying to build and make a GM. So I'm always killing GMs, and I'm like, it's not an easy job to run.
No, it's terribly hard, but that's why they get paid the big bucks, my man.
They get paid a lot of money.
Yep.
Oh man. All right, so it is NBA draft week, Michael, and this is like, for all the 29 other teams that did not win the NBA championship, this is when their fan bases get excited, right? Because hope is like, ooh, we could get somebody that's really good. Now, there is nobody in this draft that is being talked about the way Victor Wembanyama was talked about last season. Now, right. Mean that there isn't anybody in this draft who could one day be that good? I don't know. But the way it's pointed out right now, nobody has been talked about to be projected to be that good. It doesn't mean there's no opportunity there. There's probably tons of opportunity because there's talent all over the world that plays basketball. It is on you as a team to identify, what do we need? What are the skills this player has? How are we best able to get that out of this player? And, that sounds easy. I only outlined 3 steps. So it's really hard because most teams, for a number of different reasons, right? Competition between players for spots, competition between coaches for jobs. I mean, there's a million reasons why things don't happen the way they should. But in an ideal world, that's where we are right now, right? It's hope. You got opportunities. You got players who you can go after and make a swing. So how should teams, as they get ready this week, and they've been doing it for months, but how should teams be thinking about the NBA draft, and this draft in particular, when there is no Victor Wembanyama available?
Well, let me see. I was thinking about that, and like you kind of go back to the 2013 draft. Think about that. That 2013 draft had like 3 All-Stars: Giannis, Rudy Gobert, Victor Oladipo. And so those are the only All-Stars from that draft, but there were plenty of quality players that came out of that draft. You had CJ McCollum, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder, Andre Roberson before he got hurt. He was a pretty dang good player. And when you draft like a guy like Giannis at 15, surely you didn't draft him knowing that he was going to be a 2-time MVP and a champion, but so what does that tells me that this team should be looking at this draft as like an opportunity to really develop people, like your player development staffs. Like, it's time for them to earn their money, and the coaches. And if you feel like you can develop and coach guys up, like you said earlier, then this is an okay draft for you. You'll find somebody that can play for you. So to me, that's the takeaway, is that these developmental staffs, these coaching staffs, they're going to have to earn their money. You get the big bucks, time to earn them now. Yeah. And you do it when you pick up these players that nobody ever heard of, and that turn into your future stars in the NBA.
Right. And if we look back at the Celtics, we talked about it, right? Like, look at what Drew Holiday has been an all-star at least once, I think. Derek White, right? Never been named an all-star.
Nope.
What is wrong with being a player like Derek White? First of all, you're
right.
Number one. Number two, right? An integral part to a championship winning team. Not only on defense, but also scoring the basketball, right? Like, again, can make decisions, weaponize a 3. You can figure, there's plenty. You can't tell me there's nobody else in the world in the history of basketball who can do what Derek White does. There's probably tons of people who can do that. But it takes work. Find it, cultivate it, bring it out of that person.
Let's bring this back around, though. The Spurs don't get Victor Wembanyama if they don't trade Derek White.
That's true.
That doesn't happen. And like, the Spurs love that kid, and they developed him, though.
They did.
They developed him into what he is, So that's one of those great draft picks for the Spurs. I mean, I was thinking about it the other day, like DeJounte Murray. They had to trade him to get Victor Wembanyama. And so like, they bring in all these people and develop them. And, because I was trying to think about like draft picks that the Spurs have sort of missed on. And there's only one that I can think of in recent years, and that I can't think of his name right now. I'm at a loss for words, but he's with the Clippers now.
It happens.
He got in trouble. No, he got in trouble. He just got in trouble. Like, Josh Primo. Well, he's the only one like in recent years that I felt like they didn't hit on, but they didn't really get a chance to develop him because he got in trouble. Yeah, so I don't know, but that's really important in all drafts. But I think teams, it's like they don't want to do the work. Like, okay, let's just go get this guy that's supposed to be a star, and that's why you see so many people flame out too. Like, this guy is a good. How is he not a good player with his first team? And then when, like, all of a sudden, he goes to this team and he's a great player. He had some kind of epiphany or something. No, that's not what happened. He was just with the wrong franchise. And like, so the draft often tells you, I guess, how good these teams really are as far as coaches and player development.
And what we know based on the history is not very good as a whole.
Right.
Not very good as a whole, because there's talent everywhere. You mentioned the Spurs. This is a team that you know very well, being down there in San Antonio. So they have Victor Wembanyama already top 15, top 20 player in the league right now, as a rookie. Look, a top 5 defender, right? I mean, you could have made a case, even though the team's overall defense is bad, could have made a case for him to be Defensive Player of the Year. Wouldn't have gotten
voted for him.
Such a terrible record, but he was outstanding. And he has so much more room for growth, particularly on the offense, man. He can't even shoot yet, right? Look at the numbers. Not great, although they got better as the season went on. So you have a special player down there in San Antonio. I said to you before the show started, man, how should the Spurs look at this draft? Because they don't got to wait around. Now, I'm not talking about win a championship next year, but they get the right pieces in there, Michael. They can go to the playoffs next year, right? That's how
for
good
sure.
it is. So as you're thinking about San Antonio, between the draft and we'll talk about the draft first. What should they be looking at draft-wise to bring in here to pair up with Victor?
Oh, it's no secret, man. They're going to be like they have the 4 and the 8 picks, and I can almost guarantee you that those 2 picks will be used on a point guard and a wing, a two-way wing that can defend and shoot. I mean, because they like when you look at the Spurs, that was the most glaring weakness on that team is that they had zero shooting. I mean, it was Vic, and we just talked about it. I mean, he's not a great shooter yet,
right?
And you had Devin Vassell, and outside of those two, you had no chance because nobody else could shoot on that team. And so that's what they're going to be looking to add. But I would say that like one thing about San Antonio is, and it's sort of rare in my mind, just from covering the league, but ownership and the coaching staff and the front office, they're all sort of in lockstep. Like a lot of times what you see is ownership sort of getting impatient and saying, we got to do this now. And then all of a sudden, all these people start getting fired. Well, it's not like that in San Antonio. Like they trust Pop, R.C. Buford, Brian Wright. They really trust all those guys to sort of make the right decisions. And they're all sort of in alignment in that they want to build this to where they can be in a situation of long-term sustainability. You think about it, like before the Spurs sort of kind of fell into the rut that they're in right now, they had 20 plus years of dominance, 5 championships. Well, they're trying to get that back. And you don't get that back by going and trading for a bunch of guys and bringing in free agents. They know that because that's not the way they've been able to build it all these years. So I think they're going to be really slow and deliberate about it. And I know it's going to piss a lot of Spurs fans off because, it's funny living in San Antonio is that there's like a generation of fans that
only know winning.
They're just now realizing what it's like to not go to the playoffs. Like that's crazy to me.
Yep.
But that's the expectation in San Antonio, and the front office knows it. Everybody within that organization knows what the expectation is, but they also want to build this thing the right way. And if you look at the Spurs over the years, their 2 main advantages were international scouting. Guess what? Everybody can scout internationally now. That's not a secret anymore. Right. Okay, and their other advantage was player development. Well, teams are starting to catch up to them in that area. Okay, well now the Spurs are like, well, you know what? There's got to be some other place we can get an edge. And right now they're sort of on the cusp of really getting into what they call elite human performance. And so they built this expensive facility. It's like $500 million, something like that. It was crazy what they spent on it, and it's still sort of under construction right now. But the plan is to bring all the world's best in that field into that one place. And I don't know what they're going to be doing, but I just feel like that might be the next place the Spurs go to sort of keep that edge.
Well, it's interesting you say that because here at True Hoop, our founder and boss, Henry Abbott, is writing a book right now, Ballistic, and it's about injuries, but it is really based on the P3 lab out in Santa Barbara. Marcus Elliott, who's someone who's at the head of that field, right, in elite human performance.
Yeah.
And I think, again, Pop was one of the first guys on rest, right? On like, all right, we got an older team here. Not an older team, just because Parker wasn't young and he'd rest some games too. It's like, we got a back-to-back. Nah, you guys aren't even coming on the flight. Stay home, right? And the league would get mad at him and he got in trouble for all that. But it was smart, right? That helped preserve the longevity of those guys. The next frontier to us is when you're out at a place like P3 or you're able to have those kind of people in your building, you're doing assessments on your players and your guys, and you can tell on them what you need individually. It's like personalized medicine in like the real world, right? It's like, okay, 2 dudes have cancer doesn't mean that they need the same specific treatment because they're different body types and chemistries and all that.
Right.
Same with injury, right? Like all right, I think Victor needs a night off tonight because we're getting towards that yellow zone for him where he's getting fatigued, which means his muscle movement's changing and the way he runs. That's going to hurt us down the road. Let's give him some time here, right? That, I think, when teams can start getting into that stage, look out. And if the Spurs are ahead on that, I love it. We're big on that here. I mean, this NBA season, as you know, is grueling on your body. It's too long, too many games in a compressed amount of time. So if teams can figure out ways to be ahead of the curve on making sure the guys are good, that's a big way to go. You mentioned this Spurs team, and you mentioned Devin Vassell as the only guys who can shoot. So do you think Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson, do you think those guys are going to be around for the long term with Victor Wembanyama?
Ooh, that's a tough one. And the reason why I say it's a tough one is because obviously I have conversations with people, and I know at one point during the season they were sort of in this evaluation mode where they were trying to figure out, okay, who gets to move forward with Victor Wembanyama? And at the time, I want to say Devin Vassell was the only one that was like 100%. It was 100% sure that, hey, this guy is moving forward with Victor Wembanyama. So I'm expecting a ton of roster turnover. But the thing is you can't get rid of everybody. You can't trade everybody. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just can't.
Right.
You can't do that. So I think that, like, so Keldon Johnson, to me, just this is my own personal opinion. Aggregators, if you hear this, I'm not reporting anything. But Keldon Johnson is a culture guy. He's a culture guy with the San Antonio Spurs because he's been there. He was there. I want to say, like, I think Manu might have still been there when Keldon first came into the league. Like, he's been around like all those greats. And so he's a guy that, to me, helps establish that culture. And there are a couple guys like that. Trey Jones, culture guy.
Like him a
and
lot.
So to me, there's value in maybe trying to keep those guys around because, they know the Spurs way in and out. And, you have to, they have to be leaders in sort of teaching these young guys the way. Victor Wembanyama, the interesting thing about him is that he's sort of right there in lockstep with everybody as far as, like, he's if you've spent any time around him, he's very much a sort of big picture thinker. And so he's sort of the mindset that, hey, I really have a chance to be the face of the league, the face of this franchise for the next 2 decades if we play this right. And so, like, I know you hear the rumblings like, okay, they want Trey. They want Ice Trey.
Right.
Or Vic wants him. I think there's some truth to that, but I also think that the Spurs would talk to him and say, hey, that's not the move. This is what we need to do. And Vic is a sensible enough guy to say, okay, let's do it that way. And I keep saying it, like, if Vic truly wants Trae Young and he expresses that to the Spurs, what do you think is going to happen?
They're going to do it because it's
exactly
happy for sure.
Right. So, but I think though they'll if that is truly the case, they'll talk him down basically and say, hey, no, we can go do this and this will work out better.
It's interesting you said that though, Michael, because this was frustrating, I'm sure, for you watching the Spurs last year. I was like, is there a guard on this team that can throw an entry pass to this man, that can run pick and roll with this man? Anybody? Can somebody, like,
bro, look look though, they were coached to throw it as high as they could. Just throw it up as high as you can because Vic is going to go get it. And the thing is that for a while they were trying to figure it out and they couldn't. Like, I remember one day watching practice and I think it was Keldon, somebody, they threw a pass out to the corner and they were like, get that up higher. Vic is 7 foot. He's like 7'4", throw it up high. And so they were coached to do that. But I just think that until you get out there on the floor with a guy like that, you don't realize how difficult or how weird it must be because you've been playing basketball your whole life, and now you're playing with this guy. And I'm telling you, like, it wasn't necessarily frustrating watching the Spurs because the thing about it is that every night you are going to see something you ain't ever seen before.
sure.
It's wild.
For sure.
I saw this dude one time get his shot blocked by the backboard. I'm not playing. Like, he goes up behind the backboard, his arm hits the backboard, and the ball comes out. You don't ever see nothing like that. I'm like, what is this? And you see that all the time. Man, there was one time, it was preseason. He's standing at the 3-point line, and I could see a clear alley for them to throw the oop. He's standing at the free throw line. They throw the oop. He's outside the 3-point line. He just runs in there and catches it, and it's a dunk. And I'm just like, wow, this dude, he's so fun to watch, man. Like, yes, I do watch a lot of bad basketball, but Victor is special. I'm telling you.
Special player. You guys have someone down there. And again, all things being equal, David said that if he's healthy, this could be literally an all-time great, clearly, right? And that's the biggest thing. Once he's healthy, I have no reason. Nothing I saw in season 1 tells me otherwise that he won't be.
Right.
Everything he will be.
You ought to see the weird routines he does.
Oh, like I've seen some clips of that stuff. I'm like, and he seems to be someone, you mentioned big thinker. He's so invested in himself and being great. Like, he doesn't mind that people have all these projections on him, because in his mind, he knows, no, I have a plan and I'm going to work to achieve this thing.
Exactly.
There's going to be setbacks, and he's uncommonly, Michael, I feel like, I know there's going to be setbacks, and he can handle them better than I think most 19-year-olds can. And I'm very impressed by that.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, and like I said, if you just have a conversation with him, he's just such a thoughtful dude. And it's funny, like I try to get him to sort of sink into juvenile conversation with me. No, this is so one time I was in the locker room with him, and we because we always ask him what new American saying did you learn? He was like, yeah, I just learned low key. Okay, cool. Anyway, this is a game. He goes for 30 something. He goes off, and he's got a pair of the all black Air Force One, the Supreme, sitting at his locker. I said, what you know about black? I said, you know anything about black Air Force One injury? And Vic is like, of course. He knew. I was like, okay. But yeah, I try to get him to sink down into the gutter with me, but he's a fun dude to be around.
Yeah, listen, Spurs got lucky. I mean, that's all I can say. That's a wonderful, and I think that's the right place for him too. Like, he could have ended up on another place. I just think that organization, his plan, what he wants to do, I think it's right. So I'm with you. I think even if he potentially talks about wanting Trae, I think San Antonio will appeal to that big picture side of him and say, look, first of all, he's a little bit older than you, right? So it's going to be, and they're going to be win now expectations, and we want to kind of temper that a little bit, right? So I think he'll do what's right. And also, I don't know, being someone who covers the league, what are your thoughts on Trae Young? Look, I think he's super talented.
He is.
Like, Atlanta was maybe not the place because you gave your keys to your franchise to a young guy who hadn't proven anything yet. And I think when you do that, there's always a chance for disaster.
I agree with you. And I think whatever limitations he has defensively, I think Victor more than makes up for that. But this is the biggest problem, or not problem. This would be the biggest issue with bringing a guy like Trae Young in, is that the Spurs can't bring anybody in there that wants to be the man.
Right.
Okay. There has to be a clear understanding that Vic is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You are, Robin.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be Batman. You got to be Robin. And that's the thing about bringing any kind of star into San Antonio. And I think the Spurs know that they can't go get a star. Maybe look at veterans sort of on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that maybe Chris Paul, if they can find a way to get him out there, he could be the guy to sort of bridge the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you bring in Chris Paul and you draft a young point guard and have Chris Paul teach him how to play.
Mm-hmm.
Teach him all the ins and outs of the position, and then sort of have him be that bridge until your young guy is ready to play. I could see that happening. Or I could see them going and maybe getting a guy like Tyus Jones. Could you imagine, the Jones brothers at the point for the Spurs? Yeah. But I could see something like that. But they're not going to go out there and get some star. It's going to be sort of a older guy, maybe a Malcolm Brogdon, somebody like that. Yeah, but they're not going to go. The Spurs, and it's going to make people mad. But again, the Spurs want to build this thing to where there's long-term sustainability, just like Oklahoma City. And I promise you, because I've had these conversations, the Spurs have studied the way Denver built that team. They've studied Oklahoma City. they're watching all this stuff. And like the one thing that's really cool about the Spurs is that, yeah, they think they know what they're doing, but they also know what they don't know. Exactly. That's exactly how the Spurs are. Like they're going to study all these teams and say, okay, this is how Denver built it. Maybe we should build it that way. They're not arrogant to that to the point to where they can't learn something new. They're trying to learn something all the time with this team.
Wouldn't it be interesting that they learn from San Antonio, from Sam Presti, who was once at the feet of RC
exactly
in their organization, right? So it'd be kind of a full circle moment for them. But yeah, I mean, what Oklahoma City's building is fantastic, and it's very clear they have a plan, right? 5 weaponized guys, a 3-point shooting big and Chet, right, like that. Which, by the way, I love the Victor Chet rivalry. I think it's great.
Oh yeah, that's fun. So what do you think? What do you think Oklahoma City does with Jay Will now that they have Alex Caruso? Like, is he the 3? Is he the 2? Like, that's one thing I was thinking about.
I he's probably a 3. He's not a 4. That's for sure.
Right.
That's my guess. My thing is what they're going to probably do is Lou Dort's probably on his way out. Is my guess. That's a trade I think I can see happening.
Oh, I don't know, man. Like he's a culture guy.
Is Dort? So I mentioned 5 weaponized guys. Dort can't put the ball on the floor and doesn't make decisions, right? And they need, like, again, if you want your 5 weaponized guys who can make that pass when they collapse, right? And just not quite there. So that, look, I haven't talked to anybody, so I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's what I see. I'm like, oh, we're getting a little crowded there. Where's Lou Dort fit into? It'll be interesting.
Well, yeah, like I said, they're a team that I think everybody needs to be paying attention to because they're going to be really good. Mark Daigneault, great coach.
Excellent coach.
Great coach. And I remember the frustration that they were dealing with the Mavericks because of all the potential scenarios going into that series. You didn't expect PJ Washington to be busting your ass like that. and like they played the percentages there, though. They played the percentages. Yeah. But what happened was he kept doing it.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, okay, we got to guard this dude. Well, it's too late now. So,
well, Michael, what we talked about before, right? PJ was in Charlotte, a dumpster fire of a franchise. All of a sudden, change sceneries to Dallas.
Exactly.
The ultimate tide that rises all boats. Oh, look, he looks amazing now. It's like, well, maybe Charlotte was not the right place for him. Shocking.
Right. Exactly. Again, it goes to player development and how you are coached, how you have been utilized, all these things. And like you said, sort of by and large, the league is not very good at that. There's a few franchises, which is crazy to me. I don't understand why these governors, owners don't bring in the right people. It's weird.
They, I think they do it first, but they get impatient, right? Billionaires are impatient by nature, right? They want things to happen now, immediately. And it's like, bro, there's no exact science and development. It doesn't follow a linear path. Guy may do well for a year and a half, then take a nosedive or plateau, maybe a little off where he comes up again. But people don't have patience for that. It's got to be, I need 0 to 60 now. And everybody's ready to roll. And it's like, look, man, I can't make those kind of guarantees. Miami Heat do a pretty good job of developing players. I mean, it's work, and that's the other part. It is work, like not just hard work. Roll up your sleeves, and the other part is coaching, right? Coaches have to have this. They've been in a very weird position because for them, everything's about the wins and losses day to day. They have to have a longer term view at the same time. And many coaches, because of their nature, and we have to win tonight, will not play a young player or a developing player because we're going to lose if I put them out there. Yes, you probably will. However, the lumps and the lessons you learn from that will serve you better in the long run. But when you're coaching for your job, I don't got a long run. All right, get out of here in 2 weeks. So.
Right. And it's funny, I remember talking to Pop about this. We just were, shooting the bull. And I was just asking him, like, why do you keep doing this, bro? Like, I'm not trying to retire you. He said, but he was saying one of the joys of the job is sort of watching the light come on for a certain player. And he said, like you said, it's not a linear path. So it happens at different times for these players. And he said, so all season, 20 games in, you see this guy, the light finally comes on. For the next guy, it's the last week of the season. So now I'm excited about what happens next year for him, but all these coaches don't have the luxury of doing that. Pop is a legend. And so, so the governors, owners, they need to be a lot more patient. I mean, and like I said, you're seeing Denver, that was a slow build.
Mhm.
Boston, that's taken years. Minnesota's probably been a little faster, but still, it's a process, and
Yeah.
you got to have patience.
You do. You have to have the patience, and you have to have the confidence and the security to know, that there's a cohesion, right? You mentioned in San Antonio, everybody's working together from ownership down to GM and coach. That's not like that in every organization, right? People constantly looking over their shoulder. Who's going to take my job? Why is this guy in here? Who's talking to that player behind my back that I don't know about? And it's all this infighting because, as I tell people all the time, there's only 30 NBA franchises. So only one of every job exists in this league. Everybody wants one of those jobs. But ain't that many, right? So there's this constant wait, and you're always worried about something, except in the really good places where I'm not worried about my assistant shining because that makes me look good. But it's it's rare. It's rare you have that.
The NFL is very much like what you just described. I mean, I covered the NFL for 10 years, and what I would always find to be really weird is like the personnel guys, they're like, the coach can't coach. I'm bringing him the right player, but he can't coach. And then the coach is doing just the opposite, saying they won't bring me the right guys. I want this guy, this guy, this guy. They won't bring them to me. Like, no, they're getting you the right guy, but they think you can't coach. And then they,
right.
It's just, it's, and I'm like, how do you ever accomplish any goal when you are both so against one another? And you see that a lot in NFL. So, it's weird that it sort of manifests itself in basketball too.
Yeah. Not enough oars. Look, first of all, winning in this league is hard, and it's never been harder. There's so much talent all over this league. If you want to be successful, everybody on the ship with an oar has to be pulling in the same direction.
Right.
And that is not the case.
You got to take your ego out of it. You got to take ego out of it.
Which is almost impossible for most people, right? Because that's how we're wired as human beings. So it's challenging. Michael, this has been a great conversation. I want to hit you with this last quick news and notes right before we logged on. The Adrian Wojnarowski reported that Kenny Atkinson will become the new head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. J.B. Baker's staff was let go at the end of the season, as everybody remembers. Kenny was recently, obviously, head assistant with the Golden State Warriors, and before that was head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. This is interesting to me.
He's a good coach, man.
Well, because they had to talk to Donovan about this, I'm assuming, right?
Oh, for sure. But, I mean, yeah, because are you going to re-sign if we bring him in? Like, yeah, it's got to be Donovan approved.
Correct.
But if it wasn't, then, maybe that means he's out of there. I mean, I don't know. But I think he's a really good coach for that team.
I do think so. Yeah.
I think that he can sort of get Evan Mobley, like get some offense out of him.
Yep.
I think that he's a great fit for that team.
Because that's
a young team.
If you get Evan, see that their two areas are Mobley and their three, right? It'll be Okoro, whoever, right? They're getting enough offense and weaponize out of those positions. If you figure that out, man, what Donovan can do, the defense you have your twin towers with Jarrett Allen and Mobley.
Yeah.
Because those are mobile bigs, right? And I've seen Jarrett Allen shoot threes. So if you can get him to do that too, like in warm up and practice and stuff. So if you can do that, man, you're talking something different. So it'll be interesting.
I think Kenny's the guy that can do it though. Like I really think he's like, I thought he got a raw deal in Brooklyn.
He sure did.
Yeah, so no, he's the guy to do it. And it's funny because they had some pretty good candidates come in there, like James Borrego. Apparently, I thought he was one of the favorites or one of the front runners for that job. And, I spent a lot of time with him in San Antonio. He's a great offensive mind. I mean, I tell you this, boy, the Spurs would love to have him back. It's like, I mean, but yeah, I think that Kenny Atkinson is going to be really good in Cleveland. But I just hope that Donovan comes back because if he doesn't, then
then we're back to like, okay, it's Garland and Mobley, which they're all fine, and you'll compete.
Right,
but it gives you that extra, that pushes
that juice,
pushes you to the top, right? That's what we talked about before, right? If you're with the Celtics, Tatum and Brown allow, right, that amplifies Kristaps and Drew and Derek and everybody. You're like, oh, now we're cooking with grease, right? So we gotta see if that happens there. Michael, I appreciate you spending the time, man. This was great. Draft is this week. We will see what all the teams around the league do. San Antonio with 2 picks inside the top 9, which is great. 4 and 8, I believe. That'll be I think you're right. A point guard and a wing, like
Those are
you'll draft
musts.
same timeline.
Mandatory. Yeah, they're
Mhm.
mandatory draft picks, I think.
Yeah, for sure. All right, folks. We will see you later in the week. Take care.